it's also under pressure as the IMF comes out and slashes its forecast for the global economy here in 2020, including a much worse projection for what will happen here in the United States. And for more on that, I want to kick the show off by getting to Yahoo Finance's Brian Cheung, who has the details. Brian?
Well, Zach, a gloomy outlook from the International Monetary Fund, which updated its world economic outlook and said that it expects global GDP to contract by 4.9% in the year 2020. That is a pretty noticeable downgrade from the last time it provided this forecast. That was back in April, at the time projecting 3% contraction. In the United States, the IMF projecting a negative 8% GDP growth for the year 2020. Again, a downgrade from the 5.9% contraction it had projected back in April. But we had the chance to sit down with, virtually, of course, IMF chief economist Gita Gopinath, who talked a little bit about the other risk that's not just COVID-19, that being trade. Here's what she had to say.
If that does return, given that the world economy is already being hit so hard, and productivity is being affected, the repercussions will be quite severe. So this is an important one. But among the risks going forward, of course, I think the big one would be if there was a second wave.
At first saying, yes, this is certainly something that the IMF is going to want to watch with regards to downside risks to the recovery that the IMF would like to see in 2021. But she was saying really the primary concern right now would be reemergence of the COVID-19 cases we've seen in Brazil and India, for example, that the cases have basically spiraled out of control. So if the IMF does continue to see a failure to contain the virus around the country, there's no saying that the 4.5% recovery that it hopes to see in 2021 may be in jeopardy. Zach?
Yeah, and on the other front there, Brian, I mean, we're talking about the pro-con in terms of maybe addressing the underlying economic problems due to the pandemic. And they came out with an interesting tidbit there, pointing out the emergency spending by governments here that we've seen has pushed the global debt ratio above 100% for the first time. At the very least, I guess that stimulus has at least worked to keep economies intact here. But it did seem like they were concerned about what could happen if things get worse, and you'd have to see more stimulus come in. What was kind of the takeaway on that front as debt becomes a little bit more of a worry moving forward?
Well, Gopinath and the IMF at large taking the same tone as we've heard from other central banks, which is, yes, the debt is reaching record levels, but at the same time, now is not the time to be concerned about that because there's no telling what type of fiscal policy support you would need to do if you failed to do something right now, and with unemployment spiking and with people still out of jobs around the world, whether or not you would ultimately have to pay more money down the line. So Gopinath saying that fiscal support could be something that governments should and probably are considering right now, as we've seen here in the United States, as discussions from U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin about a possible new package coming soon. So that fiscal support, despite the fact that that would obviously come with a price tag, is something that the IMF would like to see in many corners of the world, specifically those that are still continuing to struggle to reopen their economies.
All right, Brian Cheung bringing us the latest there in IMF projections. Appreciate that.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.